this really is just about enhancing what's already there and bringing a higher level of detail. So we really wanted to help address the common questions with the enhanced instructions. All of you get questions regularly that we don't necessarily have concrete answers to. I think this remediation is going to help us with all of that. So we went through a series of rigorous testing with a third-party lab. We'll go into more detail on that, but that really allowed us to provide more detail on how to most effectively clean and disinfect the warmers. This included areas where contamination may be more difficult to reach. In addition, government agencies and regulatory bodies, as I mentioned earlier, have more expectations than they did years ago. This wasn't all brought on by COVID, I want to clarify that, but it has certainly increased the awareness of the importance of cleaning and disinfection. So it's time to evolve and really focus on providing the best experience for our users. And we'll, of course, try to do that with these enhanced C&D instructions. So let's go to the next question here. And I thought hopefully this will kind of give you a high level. Again, we're coming down to the details, but so what was done to create the new instructions? I think it's really important to cover this because it's a pretty in-depth process, and I want you guys to be aware of everything that happens. So regulatory bodies, I guess the first point here is to create a process to prove efficacy. So the background here, so regulatory bodies, they use the term state of art about C&D instructions, believe it or not. So what we really had to do is to start this process by thinking just that way. That burden of proving efficacy, which traditionally was on a chemical solution manufacturer, is now shared with us, the original equipment manufacturer. Okay, so again, it was always kind of the solution company, the chemical company manufacturer in the past. They had to prove that out. The change and shift has been now that onus is on us. It's a shared responsibility, but we really had to be accountable for that. So proving out efficacy, big deal. To do this, we went to work with some microbiologists, believe it or not. So they're at a third-party testing house where essentially they proved that our process can clean and disinfect the contamination. They focused on areas that have an increased risk for cross-contamination, as well as areas that can be a little bit more of a challenge to clean. The test house essentially contaminated the warmer. So they actually grow bacteria and all these different things. They contaminate the warmer. And then they test after swabbing the warmer after cleaning and disinfection to ensure that the process actually killed all those little bugs, if you will, to the desired level. So a really big accomplishment of going through that for all of the warmer. Once that was verified, we then moved on to usability. And I think you guys may have heard a lot about usability. In this context, it's really a best case around how usability can improve what we do in our business. So we needed to make sure is that the detailed instructions communicated the process clearly. This was a big deal. For the first time, we were testing with actual environmental cleaning staff to ensure that we were helping those that were actually cleaning the device. Because to be honest, what we found is when we tested with clinicians, they could kind of handle anything, right? They are at a higher reading level, higher cognitive level. We could give them a lot of different versions of the instructions and they could follow them completely. We found though, when we started testing the instructions with cleaning staff, it wasn't so cut and dry. We had to do a little bit more work. So mixed usability engineers, tech pub writers, and clinical staff really did an amazing job with all of this work. And you'll see more about what they produced, a different type of instructions that they produced, and you'll see that in a moment. Once the team confirmed that usability, right, that they can follow the instructions, correctly, then we were ready to move forward with publishing the new instructions. And so we're slated to release that in mid-March, which is why we're having the training now, so you guys can get ready to catch that. So if we move to the next slide, now we're going to talk. I just wanted, before we go kind of deeper into C and D, I wanted to talk through a couple other changes that are coming through the remediation program. And I think they're all very positive changes for your customers. So if you guys recall, there were many different addendums to the warmer manuals. Those have all been consolidated. So if there were appropriate tech bulletin information that needed to be incorporated into the manual, all the addenda, all of that has been incorporated into the manual. They also made those changes to the service manual. So rather than the customer getting the manual and then all those addenda, they will just get one nice clean manual. Now, the exception to that is the recess view addenda, and that was really just because of the timing on it. The label changes, this is very minor. One of the caution symbols is changed, as well as there was a little bit of a typo on the max baby weight, stated one way in one place and another way in a different place. So that's been corrected, as you can see in the bullet point here. The service tech bulletin, a service tech bulletin will be issued. So I just want to make that clear so that it's clear that all of these changes are going to be appropriately communicated to the service side of the business as well, although I think some of those people might be on as well today. And then the other thing I just want to make note of is with this remediation changes, of course, it includes all languages because it is the manual. A couple of locations here, Russia, Kazakhstan, and China, we do need to do a little additional registration, so that there will be a little bit of a delay on those countries. Okay, great. Let's go to the next slide. I don't want to spend much time here, but we are going to dive into C&D deeper. I just wanted to show you the traditional manual. So this is the new manual. It's very much like what you would have seen before in that text style and how we're presenting that information. Not too many major changes here other than, of course, the instructions themselves. If we go into the next slide, this also lists the continuation of the compatible solutions. And keep in mind, we're always pointing customers as well to that cleaning website. That they can use that as well. That has that information if the manual isn't available to them readily. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to get into the meat of the changes now. So on the left here, you can see the appendix with the cleaning aid. So this is an example of what is now included in the manual. I think this is like the second page of that appendix. And this is a full 4-color, really, picture-based instructions on how to properly clean the warmer. It really goes through step by step with this very colorful picture-based instructions. Very little text, actually, and of course, much more pictures. So that's probably one of the biggest changes that you'll see in the user's manual. The next point here, let's look at other notable changes. In the instructions, we had to make note of things that, I guess I'll say, maybe we assumed that customers knew, but we added them for clarity. So we clarified that the process is only for when a bed is not in use. So this process goes through, of course, using chemicals. We don't want to be using those when the baby is in the bed. There's separate point of use instructions that don't include chemicals. So that is going to be how we instruct moving forward. There's point of use when bed is in use, and then there is kind of the main cleaning instructions after the bed is used. Okay. Next point here is the disassembled bedside panels. So you all are very aware that we released, of course, the new bedside panel. And in that last release, we included cleaning instructions for a disassembled panel, right? If you remember, we had to do that. So if there's contamination found inside of that bed panel, which is now visible on the inside, we had to, of course, make sure users had instructions for how to properly clean that. So those cleaning instructions have been incorporated into these cleaning instructions. No changes to those, they've just been incorporated here. Next point is dirty, clean, disinfected part flow, process flow. So again, this is something that customers should already be doing if they follow basic standards around cleaning and disinfection, but we offered more clarity. I'm sure you saw this for those of you who went through the training, that there really has to be a separation between dirty, clean, and disinfected parts. We really want to make sure there's no cross-contamination between each one of those steps. For example, I don't want to have a dirty part touch a disinfected part, especially because I just went through all that work of getting it disinfected and now I've contaminated it with a dirty part. Okay, so again, very basic things for most customers. They're aware of this, but we've now included that kind of level of specificity in our instructions. Let's go to the next one. Details on new wipes, swabs, and gloves. Okay, so this is also very different, and I'll have to tell you there was a lot of debate on the team, from the team, on whether we include this or not. But we found from our testing that a lot of users were using dirty gloves when they went on to the other stages of cleaning or disinfection. And so we thought it was worth noting, like, hey, you've got dirty gloves, you need to throw those away. Again, most sites are going to be aware of that, but so we spelled it out, and as well as for things like the swabs, where you use them to reach hard to reach areas, or just making sure you get a new wipe. The next point on here is about rinsing with sterile water. So this one might have shocked some of you when you first saw it. I don't know. I think every site around the world is different. We've talked to some sites that say no problem. Other sites talk to and they're like, no, I don't have access to this. So we did put a note in there that, of course, if you can't find sterile or critical water, that of course just uncontaminated water is acceptable when you're rinsing. Okay. Next spot on here, difficult to reach spots. Again, here, because of our testing, we know what these spots are. We know what was a little bit more difficult for the lab to remove all the contamination on. So we love the fact that we can arm our customers with this information, right? So places like the observation light, the procedure light, places like around the screen. Of course, the knobs, that was a big area of focus too, where we saw there was a lot of contamination there, high risk for cross-contamination, and just a lot more detail around how we understand to remove that contamination. So the other thing I'll note is that, and I've done this process myself, as some of you saw the videos, because of COVID, we had so many cancellations, so I got stuck being in the video, which is most marketers' nightmare. But what you'll find is, many of you have done this before, is that those wipes often that are being used, or even the spray and the rags, they're very saturated. So as long as you can, reach those areas with the chemical, you're fine. But what we found through the testing is that using little things like swabs, cotton swabs, helped reach those areas more effectively. Okay. So the next point here is dry to remove any remaining chemical residue. So at the end, when you're all done, you've had your wet time for your disinfectant, we instruct then to go through the warmer and wipe it down. So the reason we do that is because there are times when there's a small amount of chemical residue left on the warmer. If a user comes into contact with that, so even as something as little as just an arm hitting the side, a user can have a reaction. Their skin can react to that chemical residue. So is it a super high risk? No, but again, we wanted to take it a step further to say not only do we want to protect our patients, but we want to protect the users of the equipment as well. And they could have skin reactions with that little bit of chemical residue that's left. So just by drying that to remove it, it helps us ensure that we won't see those kind of skin reactions. Okay. And then the next part here, many of you would have noticed again in your training, this is different. We recommend to repeat certain steps to achieve the results that we're looking for. So let's go through each one of these bullet points. The first is the knobs and the safety release tab. Essentially, those need to be disinfected twice. So that means you're cleaning once and disinfecting twice. That's 2 cycles of the 3-minute wet time. So essentially what we found is that area is just very contaminated. Again, we looked at the most likely worst case scenarios and tested to that. But we know that those areas, of course, make sense, right, that they're going to be adjusted during clinical use when, gloved hands can be very contaminated. So those need to be done twice. The next one here, panels, the bedside panels, the mattress, and the bottom of the translation deck. So just as a friendly reminder for those who may need it, on the giraffe warmer, right, on the translation deck, there are the 2 parts that come together. There is the top, and then there's the bottom, and the bottom have those corners that kind of rise up. So these parts, maybe you've seen a theme here, the bedside panels, the mattress, and the bottom of the translation deck, all those parts are parts that could potentially come into contact with the patient. So because of that, we do not want, obviously, the babies coming into contact with any kind of chemicals. So that is why we say you need to rinse them. Rinse them once, but rinse them twice. And again, through our testing, we found that a single rinse, which the way engineering described it to me was a single pour over the top of the item and letting the water drip down the device. So mattress goes up, you pour the water across the top, it drips down. That's how they tested it. That needs to be done twice to ensure that all that chemical is removed. And again, only on those parts where we thought there is a potential that a patient could come into contact with those parts. And then the last bullet point here is on the mattress. The mattress is actually going to be dried twice. And maybe some of you picked up on that, but when we're cleaning everything, we're cleaning it with one type of chemical. And then we're disinfecting the mattress in particular with a different chemical. So we don't want those 2 chemicals interacting with one another. So that's why to really make sure we get all that chemical off, there is a process of drying it before we do our disinfection and then drying again after disinfection. So hopefully that helps shed some light on why we're asking that to be done twice. And then just the last bullet point here is there is separate cleaning and disinfection instructions for some parts. So when you look at the instructions, and I guess what I'll say is you look at the instructions and think about that as we needed to make sure everyone could follow the instructions. So you may initially look at them and say, this is a lot, or even in the video, you're like, wow, this is a lot of steps. What I found is then when I tested them with different users, and we tested them with nurses and with environmental cleaning staff and with biomeds, and we saw very different reactions. When I see nurses who are actually cleaning the devices, they are like crazy fast and efficient, right? So they know how to clean really quickly and then get to the parts where they need to do disinfection very quickly, and they've got their 3-minute wet time and they move on. Whereas what we found with the cleaning staff, they weren't as familiar with the equipment, they weren't as familiar with the parts, so they really needed that step-by-step process. So that's why you'll see in the instructions, we go through how to clean the X-ray tray, how to clean the translation deck, how to disinfect each one of those parts. Now, for someone who's not as familiar familiar with the equipment, that's really important. We need to be very, very clear. For someone who's maybe more of a pro, you can see how they're going to simplify these instructions and kind of execute what they do. There's very specific reasons of why we had to separate the clarity around cleaning and disinfection is 2 different steps, but then also by part to help address all of those audiences. All right, well, that's the detail I have. I think Yue is going to present some of the materials that will be available to you, and then hopefully we can get to Q&A. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks a lot. So if you have any questions, remember to ask or type it in the chat so that we'll definitely answer later. And here is a slide basically as a summary and also a reminder of you, like on top of what Andrea has said, like this is the GE effort that we have been doing regarding infection control. And this is some points that you are able to tell your customers what we have been doing to help them with infection control. So here we are, like the first point that you can see here on the slide, we do have the humidifier designed with precaution of sterility in mind to protect against infections and not to promote bacteria or fungal growth. For this, you do have the white paper or the study that you can find on the box. And I also have the link later in the material part. And at the same time, we do also have the simple cleaning protocol for in-depth cleaning that you need to keep in mind. And another thing that I don't need to repeat again and again and actually, because I'm pretty sure that you're pretty familiar with the giraffe shadow solution that we have that obviously eliminate the back-to-back transition to minimize the negative touches, and at the same time the hands-free silence alarms with a one-push foot pedal with no touch to decrease the risk of cross-contamination as well. So on top of all this, and we are now like today introducing the new updated clean and disinfection instructions here. So here are what we're presenting to our customers, what we're doing, right? And next is to tell you like the available material regarding this program and also regarding infection control. So first of all, please like focus here in this part for customer education. What you will receive pretty soon after this has been implemented is that first of all, we're going to have the cleaning and disinfection equipment reprocessing, the file that you're going to receive. Also, the warmer cleaning and disinfection skill overview, as you can see right here. And also a clinical apps guide, which is not ready yet, but you will be informed as soon as it is ready. And also, of course, the user menu that you are able to share with your customers. Moreover, from the marketing part, we're going to have the external messaging video that you can utilize for your sending over to your customers or use in any campaign that you think is necessary for your region. We're going to use this for EMEA level for sure. And also an email announcement will be prepared that you can send out to your customers, as you can see all here. So as soon as they are ready and also can be released, you will be informed and receive an email about this. And on top of this, also I have added several links here regarding infection control specifically. So just a reminder here, you should all know about the existence of this website that we do have videos on giraffe care station cleaning, which is not very much on warmer, but at the same time also in regards of infection control that you can see on this link. And we also have the GE cleaning website, which has been mentioned by Andrea earlier actually, but I put the link here again. And the study that I have just mentioned on how our humidifier doesn't promote any bacteria colonization. And then here's the link. So hopefully there's no problem or question here in regards to what you will have on the materials. And then is the training and next step that I would like to remind you again. So as mentioned several times during this session, that we do have the avail content or the internal training that you should go through. So feel free to let me know if you don't see the link or the communication regarding this, and make sure that you click the link and see if this works for you. If not, please come back and let me know. And also you're gonna receive the frequently asked question as well, the document that you're able to use. On the other hand, for the next step, yeah, as already mentioned, please complete the video training if you haven't done yet. And also there's a quiz after the session. So you can take it again if you didn't pass, that you can check the right answers so that you make sure that you understand everything there in the training. And also send questions into your region leadership team if you have any, or if you can come back to me as well. And once changes are released by the engineering, you will be receiving a notification. So then you are able to study the FAQs and be prepared to answer the questions from your customers. And also, as mentioned, with the availability of the customer training assets, you are able to train your customers and also send them the material on Showpad as well. And if any of you who don't have access to Showpad, please also come back to me and we're gonna tackle this together. So apparently this is all about today's session. Hopefully this is clear for you and have answered your questions regarding this change. I'm not sure if we have any questions in the chat or some of the audience would like to raise any comments or questions.
Yes, Yue, you have a question from Rachel.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, hi. My question goes to Andrea, and it's with regards to the rinsing part. So I have come across sites where sterile saline water is more readily available than sterile water. And I'm just curious to know if this can be used instead of the sterile water. Andrea?
Yeah. Hey, Rachel. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good. So I'm sorry, I didn't catch, what were they wanting to use instead of the sterile water?
Sterile. So some of the sites I've been to, they have sterile saline water more readily available than sterile water. So can this be used instead of the sterile water?
I think it would. It seems like it would be even more expensive. So let me follow up on that. I am not sure. And I don't know if Karen's on, if she can address that, but I might have to follow up on that one to see for sure.
Okay, yeah, it can be expensive, but I think it's more about the procurement issues where because saline has been used for, even as IV drips to patients, they find it to be more readily available within the hospital because of the procuring process to get sterile water. So it might be expensive, but readily available.
Yeah. I guess I first thought is they should just look for a non-contaminated water source, if that's available. I know there's a large variance there, but I would think they would be able to get that more easily. So that would be my first reaction, but let me follow up with the team to see if anyone's looked into that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Frank speaking from the Netherlands. I watched the video, and I have a question about the time you think the customer will need to clean the unit. It looked quite impressive and time consuming. And as you all probably know, time is always a hot issue especially for nurses, but also for the cleaning staff. And you did the cleaning process now several times during the process. What's your impression about the timing now the customer will need to follow this advice?
Yeah, we had the exact same concern, so I hear you. So we did multiple tests, and I'll tell you that, and these are unofficial, we can't claim a certain time by any means, but I did test it, and I'll tell you it depends on who cleaned it. The nurses all did it extremely quickly compared to some of the other groups that we tested with. So we're saying about an hour. But I want to be clear that shouldn't be used as a multiplier by the number of warmers. So I think there's some efficiency. So if you're cleaning like 2 warmers at the same time, where you can, do the same thing on each part at the same time, and it's not going to equal double the amount of time. But for a single warmer, we were saying it was about an hour. But again, I think that could go down to 40 to 45 minutes if you have someone who's very proficient at it. And then we did see it go past an hour for those who just kind of struggled with the disassembly, struggled with, putting it back together, and all those sorts of things. So, and again, I think there's a difference between the first time you do this process versus, of course, once they become very accustomed to it. So hopefully that addresses your answer or your question, Susan.
And I've also a second question about what you said about being compliant to the latest standards of cleaning and disinfection. Is that a global new standard, or is there something changed? In other words, can customers expect us to change our cleaning procedure?
Yeah, we wish there was a global standard that would make our lives a lot easier. But no, it is by country in some regards. But there are ISO standards as well as MDR, which is across all of Europe, essentially, where they are putting different requirements, where we talked about that shift onto OEMs to be able to prove the efficacy of their cleaning process. That's now on us. So what I'll say is that it's been coming for GE, and GE is a little, has had many priorities. So I'll say we are the first business to move this forward, I think particularly because of our space, with the patients that we help our clinicians care for. But this will be coming across all of GE Healthcare. So if your customers haven't seen this yet, they will see it if they buy any other GE equipment over the next several years. They will see it from every single business in GE Healthcare.
I understand, but but the background of my question is more or less, for example, why disinfect twice? They are not use and disinfect twice. I can imagine that in every standard is mentioned that you need to clean and disinfect, but why disinfect twice? It would make sense or help us when we could have a standard where it is written that when the best thing would be disinfect twice.
Yeah, so the standard doesn't direct that. The standard directs that we need to prove efficacy. In order for us to confirm that contamination is removed, that process for those parts required us to disinfect twice. And that was based off the lab actually sampling the product and taking a swab of bacteria on the side of the product and saying, did it effectively remove the bacteria? So that's why the testing drove the requirement for disinfecting twice, not the standard.
Okay, and my last question is, do we also expect to change in the cleaning procedure of the Giraffe Care Station?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I knew that one was going to come. So yes, this will come across for every single one of our products in the MIC portfolio, as well as every portfolio across GE Healthcare. We understand that, especially for the Giraffe warmers, for those of you who are selling those into the NICU, there might be some questioning on, well, when am I doing this on the incubators? So I will tell you, this will come for the incubators. It's not quite ready yet. We're doing a lot of the lab testing. They're actually, in the middle of that project very deeply. It's a big project, especially for our incubators, as you guys can imagine. But this one is the first one out of the gate, and additional ones will come for every single one of our products.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question and answers. Hope everything is clear now. Any other questions? Okay.
I have one.
Yes.
When you're doing this cleansing procedure, You know, the old style of the green mattress, that is not sealed, so water can come into it if we don't have the new design, because it's just stitched. And also the side walls, they are not sealed, so if you rinse them, there is a major risk that water will go inside them.
Yep, we found the same thing. So I think that with the rinsing, it really is a single stream of water over the entire mattress. And we do ask people to pay attention to the seams and clean and dry that, right? So yes, there is a risk that the water can get inside the mattress, as well as with the walls. I know when I rinsed them, I kind of had to shake a little bit because some of the water did get on the inside of the wall. But we do have to know, you know, at that point, the wall is disinfected. So it can dry and we don't see a risk there. It might be a little bit of annoyance for a customer, but it should be allowed to dry if possible.
Yeah, because the problem is if you get water inside it, we need to disassemble it, probably to get all the water out.
Mm-hmm.
I think this will be a major problem. Especially well, the mattress, the new design is better design because that has, you know, fluid. But the old one with stitches, I know the problems really, as just wiping it off gets fluid inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's just, you know, at this point they need to be rinsed to remove the chemicals. You know, I think it can be done in a way where you're reducing the potential for the water to get inside. But I hear you.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Oh, I see another hands raising. Gauthier?
Yes, hello Yue and hello Andrea. Just a little question about steam cleaning. Do you have any recommendation for steam cleaning, which is a great alternative of clinical agents?
Yeah, actually, we've heard both the steam cleaning and the UV cleaning. So it's on our list to actually ask our engineering team to do a little bit more work on, as again, we get into how our cleaning instructions need to evolve. Mostly what we're hearing is that the steam cleaning is being done in the room. And, you know, so not so much on the device. And again, I recognize that might be different in different areas. But at this point, we do not have any instructions validated for steam or UV at this point on our devices. But it is something that we are hearing more about and are actively, you know, we just did a listening session with some customers to learn more about that. So we're looking into it. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think you're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Yeah. So actually, Andrea, I see you raise your hand. Maybe you have pushed the button or anything that you want to raise again. Oh, okay.
No, sorry.
Thank you, Andrea, for the session. And if we don't have any other questions so far, we're gonna give you 9 minutes back. And if you have any further questions, feel free to email us or ping us on Teams. Okay, so thank you very much all for attending today, and thanks a lot, Andrea, for the great session and also answering all the questions. So yeah, thank you all again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.